another episode of the Set at Home Mom. And I know I haven't been posting regularly in quite a while, and that's just kind of how life has been. For the most part, I felt like I just couldn't grow my YouTube channel as fast and as quick as I thought I would, so I kind of just moved on to other things, and I kind of got tired of social media and stuff. Not that I still get on a lot, but that's a whole nother story. I've also been directing our Foundations and Essentials program within our Classical Conversations community this year, and just more little things that we've been doing, homeschooling. But you can find me on TikTok under the Set at Home Mom, where I have been making fun short videos, and I realized there was a lack of homeschool people on there in general. So I kind of wanted to talk about it being Black History Month. It's February, guys. It's something that, I've heard all growing up, knowing that February is Black History Month. I don't remember in school if there was a big emphasis on that or not. I obviously remember teachers reading books, and I definitely remember doing things on MLK Day. Now let's go back to when I was a teacher. There was no really big celebration for Black History Month. It was something that was kind of talked about. I think some teachers kind of incorporated that a little bit, but the truth is there just wasn't time to really teach any kind of history. So you can actually see one of my other videos about my gripes with history in the public education system, but I'm not doing that today. Also, when I taught, the largest minority on my campus was actually Hispanic students. There were still more white kids, but Hispanic students probably made up 30 to 40% of our population, because that's what we're taught, and Blacks only made up about 1%. So I don't think there was just a general, there was a big thing about celebrating different Mexican culture, or not Mexican, but just Hispanic culture in general on our campus. I saw a little bit more, and that's probably because we were a dual language campus, so it kind of made more sense for where I taught. But what about homeschooling? Do I teach Black History Month or celebrate Black History Month? The answer is no, we don't. That might make me racist by today's standards, but hey, that's how it goes. Do I teach Black history? Yes, because I teach American history. I just kind of don't believe in segregating groups of people as I teach history. I believe in teaching my children in chronological order. And this year we are doing a focus on American history, because we are following the Classical Conversations curriculum, and we're in Cycle 3, which is American history. And I just include stories about all different types of people that I can find, books in the library, books that I decide to order over the internet, that just include everyone, all these Americans. Especially, I like to include as many lesser known people and their stories. I find their stories interesting, and I think my girls find their stories interesting. They like learning about, the names they hear more often, like George Washington. And, I found a cool book at the library about Phyllis Wheatley. And, I read a book to my kiddos. We covered the War of 1812, and I found this really random book about a guy that was a drummer in the war, and I was like, okay, well, I'd never heard of that. And I wouldn't say he did anything majorly impactful to American history, which is probably why I can't even really recall his name, but it was a really cool story. And I like to just include stories about lesser known people and the little guy, basically. And as we kind of just keep going on, we just hit whatever time period we're in. I just search for whatever library books there are, or whatever books maybe I found that through the internet that I wanted to order to read my kiddos. Even when we talked about westward expansion, I even found a story just about some Black pioneers. I was like, hey, that's cool. And the emphasis wasn't even on their race necessarily either, so that was kind of cool. Just, hey, here's another story of just Americans doing American things. And that's kind of the whole point, is I'm just teaching my kids American history, and we're learning it in order. So we covered slavery and the Civil War, and I did notice when we watched I don't even know, some movie, and it was kind of set in the past, and my daughter goes, "Oh, look, Mommy." She saw black people, and she's like, "Oh, look, Mommy, slaves." And I was like, "No, they aren't slaves." It's like, not every person was a slave. So I've kind of noticed just certain things that my kids have picked on, and we did watch like Gone with the Wind, so that's just kind of seeing how kids learn and make those connections are kind of interesting. And then you kind of have to tweak their thinking and turn it a little bit to be like, well, there's a little more to it than that. So on MLK Day, I didn't celebrate that with my kiddos. But you know what? We will be getting to the civil rights probably in April and maybe March, I don't know. And by then we will actually, that's when my kids will learn about Martin Luther King and Ruby Bridges and Rosa Parks and whatever, minor character that's played a role in our American history that I can read to them and things like that. So, I mean, that's how we do history. It's not segregated, and I don't want to continually compartmentalize history like that. Like, let's just teach it as fluidly as possible and read cool stories. I've definitely learned since teaching my kiddos history. I've learned a lot more because I've read books to them about people that I never heard of because they were just, they were minor characters in, the big thing of this American history, that maybe they didn't do something big and significant because, they didn't sign the Declaration of Independence or whatever, but they still played a role in some way. And, and it's like every person can have a purpose, and, the purpose doesn't have to be big. And of course I include just, whatever other people I can find. Not just black people, just whatever I can find. When we were reading about, actually while we were covering slavery, I read a book that was kind of based, on a true story of a slave girl that was bought by, I believe, Choctaw Indians. So she was a slave to Indians, and then she was purchased by a white guy while on the Trail of Tears. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool, because things you don't know. Guess I'm kind of rambling on here. So, just let me know how you teach history to your kiddos. Do you prefer to teach it in chunks like that, or do you just like to go in chronological order? If you're looking for any book recommendations, I would be happy to give you some. I just kind of, with my public library, I just kind of type in whatever it is I'm looking for and get those books. And I've created a list all year long through like Surf Books and Amazon to find just really cool books to read to my kiddos, because I just kind of want my kids to understand that there's all sorts of people involved in the history of America and what makes it kind of cool and unique.